Today I'm going to talk about everything that you need to know to make hats like these. This is made using a technique called Intarsia. So I'm not actually doing a tutorial, but this is just to point you in all the right directions so that you can do this too. So the first thing you need to know is how to make a beanie, and these are just simple beanies. Nothing special about them, just done in single crochet. Both of these are started with 6 stitches and then increase evenly every row for 11 rows on this one and 12 rows on this one. So it all varies depending on the yarn and the hook you're using. I started with 6 because with single crochet it just seems to make the most sense to start with 6. When you use bigger stitches you start with a higher number count on your first round, but with single crochet I think 6 is a pretty good number. So I will link to Bob Wilson's beanie tutorial, and I will also link to the pattern that calls for the starting with 6 and is in single crochet. So between those two things you should have no problem figuring out how to make just a regular plain old beanie. So the second thing you need to know how to do is Intarsia. And Beth in Texas has a great Intarsia series on her page, so I'm going to link to those. She has single crochet and double crochet. I think for hats, single crochet works better because double crochet would make these logos significantly larger. So the single crochet helps to keep the logos manageable, and it helps you be able to use more stitches in your patterns, because if I were to have done this in double crochet I would have had to figure out how to do the same thing with way fewer stitches, and that's just a lot more difficult. So using single crochet you allow yourself more stitches to figure out how to get the pattern in that space. So I find that to be preferable. And another thing that with Intarsia hats, I think it is preferable to chain one and turn at the end of every round instead of the typical working in the round. This hat is worked in the round, and you can kind of see the X's aren't quite even. The one slash is a lot thicker than the other, and this is the pattern, and see how it's a little bit different. The X's on this are more even, and if I would have actually made it like this I would have gone in at the end and stitched to make the X's super straight, and it would have looked a lot better. But this pattern I actually did do that. At the end of every round I would join, chain one, and then turn and work back around the way I had just come. So one of the main reasons for that, besides just the pattern coming out better, is that when you're doing Intarsia, see, I started with my yellow right here. I picked it up and I worked across. If I would have worked in the round, I would have come all the way back around, and then when I would have gone to go do my yellow again, the yellow strand would be over here. So I would have either had to pull it across and behind here in the back, or I would have had to pick up a new yellow strand for every single row. So instead I go across with my yellow, come back, I join back here, I kind of have a seam, and then I would chain one, turn, and then come back, and when I would get back here my yellow strand would be right there waiting for me to pick it back up and work it across. Now down here I did work 2 little yellow balls of yarn because I didn't want to pull across just to do 1 stitch. So instead I would just pick up the ball of yarn, do a stitch, drop it, do the block across, then pick up, do the stitch, drop it, and then go around. You know, so once you watch Beth's videos that'll make a lot of sense to you. You'll know what I'm talking about. I'm trying to think. And this pattern, it came out a bit wonky. It was a little jagged because of the way the rows kind of shift a little bit. So I used yarn at the end and stitched over certain areas to make it straighter. Like right here, there was black like jutting out over here, and there was yellow jutting in over here. It was like this middle row had kind of shifted over a little bit, so I just went right over that, and it looks fine now. So just do little things like that at the end of your project, and your hat will look great. So the hardest part about Intarsia is making a pattern, and I suggest doing a practice swatch first. Here are all of my practice swatches for the different hats I did. These are the 2 hats I just showed you. And just do it with scrap yarn you have lying around, you know, the stuff that you need to get rid of, because, you know, you can use those little balls of yarn to practice with this stuff. So, see, with this pattern, this isn't exactly how I did it on my hat, but I knew I only had to change 1 stitch, so I just left it the way it was, and then went and worked on the actual hat and fixed what I needed to fix. But doing this first let me see how it worked up and let me see what I needed to fix. So it made the process a lot easier, instead of actually starting on the hat and then getting almost done and then being like, oh, I don't like how this looks, and then tearing it apart. So doing the little practice swatches is definitely helpful. So in short, learn how to make a beanie, watch Beth's Intarsia videos, and turn at the end of every round, and you should be able to make a really nice Intarsia hat. So if you do make one, I would love to see it. Just make a video response, or link to a picture in the comments. I'd love to see anything you make, not necessarily just these patterns, but any Intarsia hat. I'd love for you to share it with me. So I hope that this was explanatory enough, and I really do think it's so much easier than it seems like it would be. So good luck in your projects. Have a good day.